Now for a look at tonight's top stories. CAL FIRE fire stations are rescued from the budget acts. All 12 stations in Butte County will remain open for the rest of the year. Butte County supervisors voted to take more than $960,000 out of unassigned funds to make sure all county fire stations will stay open every day for the coming year. The decision will end a practice called brownouts, in which CAL FIRE closes 2 stations a day on a rotating basis to save money.
A Reading woman viciously attacked at a Reading dog park is demanding changes there. Nancy Carey was walking her 4-month-old puppy in Benton Park last week. She says that when a large dog knocked her down, and that's when a dog knocked her down and bit her, she had to get about 40 stitches in her arm. The dog's owner says his Japanese Tosa was not at fault. The dog is in quarantine until a dangerous dog hearing on July 6th. Animal control officials say they'd like to set up an informational booth to let dog owners know the rules and what their rights are.
Glenn County has seen a spike in burglaries over the past 2 months. Officials from the Sheriff's Department say at least 5 burglaries took place in the county last weekend alone, including the theft of a $6,000 tractor. But the department is currently unable to follow up on many of the incidents because of massive budget cuts.
Economists were expecting a big drop in new home sales last month, but not like this.
Figures released today show sales of new homes plunged by more than 30%. Chris Clackham has more on the story.
The dive last month of single-family home sales to their lowest level in 4 decades is worse than analysts expected. But worse still, the dive may not be over.
We're continuing to see weakness into June, whereas we would have expected to see some gradual improvement here.
New home sales dropped nearly 33% last month. Behind the decline is the expiration at the end of April of the home buyer's tax credit of up to $8,000, which some in Congress are trying to extend parts of, at least through September.
They had to, of course, sign that contract by the end of April in order to qualify. So we expected some fall off in May, and sure enough, we got a pretty significant fall off, I admit. But I think it is due to the time shifting in order to become eligible for the tax credit.
Home builders have spent the last few years adjusting, building fewer homes to avoid new ones sitting empty. And for the most part, builders are upbeat about sales being better, even in the short term.
I think we are in a pause moment, and once we get through this shift in demand, we'll see some uptick along with the rest of the overall economy.
But May's poor showing could send home prices back down again and buyers back to the sidelines.
The thought is, if prices are falling, why buy today? Let's wait for tomorrow.
It's not what sellers want to hear. Chris Clackham, NBC 24 Action News.
Construction is nearly complete on 2 new buildings on the Chico High School campus. Crews were working to put the finishing touches on the buildings on the north side. The new buildings will have 21 classrooms, offices, and meeting rooms. Crews broke ground on the buildings a year ago. They're hoping to have construction completed by October.
The Corning City Council tomorrow will vote on a new furlough plan. The plan would save the city more than $280,000 over the next fiscal year. Corning's 4 employee bargaining units have all agreed to the plan, which calls for employees to take 1 unpaid day off every 2 weeks. Under the terms of the agreement, the City Hall and City Yard would be closed every other Friday. The police and fire departments are also subject to the furloughs. If approved, the furloughs would go into effect on July 2nd.
Voters in November will decide whether to suspend California's global warming law until unemployment drops by more than half. The so-called California Jobs Initiative was authored by North State Assemblyman Dan Logue. The initiative would suspend AB 32 until the state's unemployment drops to 5.5% or less for a full year. AB 32 would reduce California's carbon emissions by 25%. It was signed into law in 2006 and is set to take effect in January. Action News spoke by phone with Assemblyman Logue today, who's in Sacramento.
And so this is the beginning to try to bring a recovery to California and send a message out to the businesses throughout the country that California is going to be open for business again, and that we are about jobs and prosperity, not political correctness.
Logue says AB 32 would cost 1 million jobs and raise energy costs, but opponents of Logue's bill say it's the wrong time for a ballot measure that benefits big oil companies at the expense of our environment. The measure needs a simple majority to pass.
The federal government is making a $6 billion commitment to electric car technology. The proposal the Obama administration is backing includes more research and development on car batteries, aid for recharging outlets, and consumer tax credits for car purchases. This comes as the Gulf oil spill has renewed interest by the government to cut back oil consumption.
There has been a major change on the floor of the Gulf today. More oil clearly spewing from the crippled Deepwater Horizon well after an accident at the spill site. Jay Gray has the latest.
Disturbing new pictures from the floor of the Gulf this morning. Oil rushing freely from the severed riser. Crews apparently forced to remove a containment cap after a remotely controlled vehicle collided with the structure, closing a vent.
When they thought that line might have been compromised, or they had the chance that they might have hydrocarbons coming up through that vent into the Discover Enterprise, which is flaring right now, over an abundance of caution, they elected to remove the cap and move the riser pipe and the cap away.
The Q4000 recovery ship is still flaring off oil and natural gas, but these pictures clearly show a lot more crude escaping into the water. Another wave of oil has washed up along the Gulf Coast today, this time in Pensacola Beach, Florida. Huge globs of crude and smaller tar balls soiling the sugar white sands and suffocating the marine life.
We didn't make it. I'm sure there's a lot out there that we can't see.
The mess stretches for miles.
We were so hopeful that it wasn't going to come to the beach, but obviously something happened overnight.
Just devastation. I immediately went into tears. You know, this is God's creation, you know, and for it to be destroyed like this is just heartbreaking.
An ache that has lingered for 65 days now.
And one that's likely to continue with more oil just off the coast and more problems at the spill site. Jay Gray, NBC News, Venice, Louisiana.
Interior Secretary Ken Salazar says the nation cannot move ahead with new offshore drilling, quote, until we know it can be done in a safe way. His comments to a Senate panel came as the administration prepares a new order imposing a moratorium on new deepwater drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. A judge yesterday struck down a moratorium that had been in place since after the Deepwater Horizon accident.
In other news, finding a health care plan will soon get easier. A new federal website will be available July 1st. It lists all private and government health care plans for people and small businesses. It's part of the new health care law that was passed earlier this year. Basic facts will go on the website at first, such as company names, but in October the site is scheduled to add detailed cost and benefits information. However, insurers and consumer groups are clashing over how much information the site should give about insurer performance.